Welcome, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order and ask that those that have cell phones, please put them on mute or turn them off. And we welcome those members of the public that are in the gallery tonight and those that are home, watching from home. Great to have everyone out for sure. Just acknowledging the fact that Councillor Dietrich's not here tonight, but we do have quorum. So we'll ask everyone to rise, roll Canada, please. Again, welcome everyone, and we'll begin our meeting with our land acknowledgement. As we gather, we are reminded that the municipality of South Huron is situated on Treaty 29 land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. As a community, we have a responsibility to honor and respect this territory's significance for the Indigenous peoples who lived and continue to live upon it and whose practices and spiritualities were tied to the land and continue to develop in relationship to the territory and its other inhabitants today. In the spirit of reconciliation and truth, we acknowledge the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples on whose traditional territory we are meeting. Thank you. We move to item number 2. Ms. Masuda-Carlson, please.
That South Huron Council approves the agenda as presented.
And the mover, please. Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries a 5. Thank you. Next item, disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Are there any disclosures this time? Very well, not seeing any. We'll move on to presentations, which are none, and we welcome our friends from the other delegation, Aaron Schooley and Christine Hoffman. Welcome. I believe Aaron's going to be doing the speaking tonight. Great to have you. Don't be shy, Christine.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight. Who am I looking to for the Andra? Great. Thank you so much. Before I get started, I do want to talk just a little bit briefly about the experience of homelessness, the journey into homelessness, and what we know about that so far in brief terms. No one wishes to be homeless, that we know. Homelessness is a deeply complex journey for everybody, and the exit from homelessness is equally complex. Our collective misunderstanding of the experience of homelessness has led to a more deeply entrenched human crisis. It's easy for us to blame those who are homeless on life choices or laziness or other misunderstandings. Those misunderstandings that come about because we sometimes accidentally evaluate the behaviors which obscure our view of what's really happening. Conversations that start with compassion then start to shift to solutions. Critical to this process is using a trauma lens. For example, women in homelessness have all too often been the victim of domestic assault or human trafficking. Seniors and women are often overrepresented in our homeless population in Canada. Indigenous, those who identify as Indigenous are also highly overrepresented in the Canadian homeless population. Intergenerational trauma contributes to issues of mental and physical health that are often associated with homelessness. People in the homeless population have been disproportionately higher rate of acquired brain injuries. While it is unclear if those occurred prior to or after entering homelessness, it's a fact that scares me a great deal, as I might be one slip on ice from an acquired brain injury that eventually profoundly alters my decision-making and my relationships. And in fact, often when I sit with our community partners or we talk about our collective work, I think about how would I want someone to look after me if I were next, and was unable to make decisions for the rest of my life for myself. While substances are usually typically higher in the homeless population, that's not true of all folks, but sadly, self-medicating is a common coping tool for trauma. There is also a psychological adaptation that occurs to cope with the stressors of prolonged homelessness. The brain shifts from a future-based orientation to one of daily survival and decision-making, and then is informed by traumas of the past. When we are confused as to why folks don't take just any old housing that's offered to them or engage in services the way we wish that they would, we need to circle back to those kinds of considerations. And lastly, it's important to understand that the recovery from homelessness is complex and often requires an in-depth amount of support. So how are we working to respond? No one agency can do this alone, and we must create a system from which we are all working together. So currently, we do know that there's a lot of barriers to services, soaring rental rates, limited stock, and extensive reference checks, just to name a few. The sale of properties containing the rental stock is surmounting, and excess and accessing support funding is also very, very limited. If our collective goal is to end homelessness, then we must work together to be part of the solution, because again, this is not something we can do alone. You can switch it again. As you can see, there is quite an ecosystem on our housing continuum, from homelessness through to market ownership. In between are the various levels that we can work towards to support somebody in their journey out of homelessness. So I'm going to start with supportive housing briefly. Supportive housing is wraparound supports, such as you can see by this slide, meals, mental health addiction supports, medical services, financial assistance, life skills coaching, and employment services. When we work towards developing our supportive housing programs, then we want to ensure that all of these components are in place for somebody as they move gently towards their recovery. Our Heart to Home program this year will look a little different. For the last 8 years, actually, we have run an Out of the Cold program, a winter shelter. However, this year we are switching to a motel emergency shelter program from November to April. That extends the program by 1 month this year. The guests will have opportunities to connect with social agencies and healthcare services while they're accessing the shelter or the motel / shelter, and they will retain support so that they can acquire their identification, financial aid, and other further services that support their journey into housing stability. We do have with our team 8 housing support workers who will be working out of the motel to help people on that journey. We again will contract with CMHA here on Perth. This contract is currently current to date and will be renewed in November 1st. Our supportive housing options in Huron are in a couple ways. So first, there's the Heart to Home Housing Stability Team that I just referred to. There's 8 of them. We have an addiction supportive housing program that we fund through the HPP program. That's the homelessness prevention pot of money we receive from the province. And then here in Turning Point, which you may be familiar with here in Exeter, we use that as part of the county-wide response system. You can turn again. We also do work on data collection. There's a couple ways we're doing that. In previous years, you will have heard me talk about an enumeration, or you may have heard that come out of council before when I've reported there. The enumeration is a snapshot. It's okay, but it's just a snapshot. We now have the advantage of having what's called a by name list, which is kind of a leading practice in the industry and allows us to have a living document of those who are consenting and experiencing homelessness. We're very comfortable now with the data that we have acquired. We started doing that work in 2022 and we're feeling more and more confident with it. We have a lot of partners on board with us, helping us to inform that document. From that document, we are able to make informed decisions for the clients we're looking to serve. So I want to talk a bit about that by name list. We can turn again. Thanks. A by name list is real time. It's dynamic instead of a static list. So you will have heard us talk about our community housing wait list. That's a static list. People come on the list and wait for a number of years to be accessed. In this case, we are constantly changing that and reevaluating our by name list and understanding how we're prioritizing people who are on that list. if you come onto that list, it doesn't mean that you're going to be served chronologically off that list. We're working with people depending on the matching and prioritization that we're going to do. And I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. Individuals must be consenting to be on that list. So that's important to understand. We have a number of partners. We're really blessed in Huron County who are supporting the work on that. We have food programs, mental health associations, Ontario Works, hospitals, libraries, all helping to support people to get their names onto the by name list. And then from there, we start to wrap the right services around people on the list at the right pace that we can do that. You can turn again. I won't get into this slide with much depth. Kendra, you can turn that next. Thank you. I'll invite you to take a read of it, but it helps you understand what options or what comes available to us when we use a by name list. But smarter triage, improved systems, and resource advocacy are the priorities that we really want to focus on. And that doesn't just stay locally. We want to be we're feeding that information back up to the province. Thank you. You can turn it again. With the by name list, it's only as good as our coordinated access program. So I can hold this list and that's great. And I can get some fabulous data from that. It helps me to understand the personal experience for people. And I can understand what's happening at the local county level and people's journeys. But now we need to pair that to a proper service system. So the circle on the left-hand side of your screen was our service provision system. It was hard to get into. It was sort of one gold nugget in the middle and all staff and clients looking hard to find their way to that housing in the middle. We want to move to a more systemic perspective, the one on the right. Can get you to turn again. In many communities, it's believed that the long-term homeless population is underserved, but that is far from true. And in fact, they're often overserved with a forced dependence on systems like shelters, drop-in spaces, and food programs that are meeting important basic needs, but none of whom are resourced to focus on ending homelessness. We need to help make shifts that support future orientation thinking, changing from reliance on programs to interdependence nourished by relationships and networks. That's exactly what you see happening in this slide. People are coming in through their access points. We assess them, we figure out what's going on for them, and we do what's called a VI SPDAT, which is an assessment tool. We add them to the by name list, and then we start to prioritize them based on their acuity levels and make sure we're matching them to the right program and the right supports and the right housing, because not everyone needs intensive case supports. Some people need a little financial underpinning, and other people need something of a larger magnitude. We can turn again. You have already seen coordinated access in action. This slide will show you how familiar it is. This is a hospital system. If you come in with a broken arm, you don't need a cardiologist. And if you come in with a heart attack, you don't need an orthopedic surgeon. You want to be put in the right space at the right time. And sometimes you may come in with a broken leg, but you don't get right away seen because the person with the heart attack is getting served first. It's the same system. We're just switching that to a housing focus. I can turn again. I think the biggest question here is, why are we prioritizing? Why are we doing that? Because we have limited stock right now. And the stock that we have to be really effective. And I'll be honest with you, most people can actually end their own homelessness or get themselves housed. Most of us in this room are able to manage our housing situations. But there are people who need some additional supports. And that's what we want to do with the prioritization process. This is another slide to just demonstrate how the system can work and the benefit to it. So moving people along that continuum back and forth as necessary, and making sure that we are constantly fully aware of what's happening on a day. We are on that list, that by name list, hourly. So this is a living, breathing document for us. We can turn it again. The system benefits. Without it, you wouldn't know how the housing system and the process is working or where to improve our systems. That's why we need to be doing this work. We need to share information between different agencies and program areas so we can help them to prioritize and know where we need to flow our funding to support the work that's happening and where gaps exist. At the client level, we just have a chance to know you intimately. We know what's happening for you, as opposed to just seeing the behavior on the outside. We can understand what's happened, where you've come from, where you're going to, and what's impeding you, so we can help. And that is my presentation in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Any questions for Aaron? Deputy, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. The mayor and I saw it at county level, and just for the rest of council, do you have any numbers with you that you could share That's what I'm kind of looking for. So
Sure.
thank
Yep.
you.
Yep. Currently in the county of Huron, active on our by name list are 92 individuals. So those are all consenting. We do move people to inactive, whether we've lost contact with them. Since we started, I think we've seen about 220 people come across that list. As much as the 91 is a big number and an important number, that 220 bothers me too, because it really indicates the number of people who are vulnerable. So even if they're not consenting to be on the list any longer, seldom do we lose consent. It's more that we've lost touch with them. They've maybe moved on to another community. They might circle back again, or they're just not engaged with services the same way. But that's indicative of the number of people who are in crisis, if not less, more than that in our community.
Great. And Councillor Need, go ahead, please.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor Finch, and thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering, with the number of consenting individuals, is there a larger number of non-consenting individuals?
Right. That's a great question. I actually believe that number is small. I think it's still important because our number is modest. And even though our number is small, it doesn't mean that we're not per capita running neck and neck with larger urban centers. So we do still have a crisis here. But I would dare say if I were randomly a guess, I'd say there's somewhere around 10, but I don't want to be quoted for saying that there's 10 people, but there's a handful I know who are not on that list. But we have come a long way in that conversation and helping people to feel safe and trusting. And I think we've got a lot of people coming onto that list. Even a year ago, we were probably sitting at 50, and now we have more and more people and more workers understanding the value of the list because they're seeing people get housed from that list. So yeah, I think we're doing really well. But I would say we are always a work in progress. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you as well for the presentation. Just wondering what the trends you're seeing, how that the buy list, 92 right now, where was it before COVID? Does COVID made the list even bigger because of various scenarios?
So it wouldn't be appropriate for me to guess at where we were before COVID because such a list didn't exist, but we had done enumeration in previous times. So the last enumeration was 169 individuals. That said, though, the definition since that enumeration to today's list has changed. So folks who are who are in a transitional housing space are no longer eligible to be on that list. So we are working with our partners to decide how that's to be defined, because we in the industry feel strongly that if you're in transitional housing, you do not have the security of your housing yet. You are in a program. So our coordinated access court committees are working on those discussions. So right now, the 169 was probably a big number. The reality is probably more grim overall. Yeah, but I don't have a number pre-COVID for an active by name list. It's a different kind of measurement. Yep.
Councillor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to ask you a question about the benefits of a by name list at the beginning here with smarter triage, targeted limited housing resources to meet or to the most vulnerable individuals and families. And I'm just wondering how you determine what the most vulnerable individuals and families are.
Yes, I love that question. So currently we use what's called a VI SPDAT. It's a vulnerability index survey. It was developed by a company called OrgCode that we've partnered with. It is not necessarily the leading tool right now in the industry, but one is yet to be developed. So a lot of us are still currently using that particular tool. But that tool allows us, and we can use a tool for a young person, so a youth-specific tool, a family-specific tool, or an adult-specific tool. And there's a series of complex questions that they work through with a worker, and then it ultimately gives them a score. So then when we do our prioritization, back 3 years ago, we sent a survey out to the community to say, okay, what should service prioritization look like? What are the criteria that we really heavily all agree on? Chronicity of homelessness. So the length of time you've been homeless and if you've been chronically homeless is our number one category. So we start with that. So if somebody's been homeless for more than 6 months or 36 months in the last 3 years, then we look deeply to that number. And then we consider their length of time, fleeing domestic assault, some other criteria as well. The VI SPDAT score sometimes leads that conversation. Sometimes it's the tiebreaker of that conversation, depending on the service provider. So if a service provider says, I have a unit, I'll put it on the table for us to try to decide who we're going to put into that unit, they may give me the criteria, and the VI SPDAT might be one of the criteria that we use. So then we would look to that number first. But that is the way we assess them. And then we use our prioritization criteria to decide who goes when, where, and how, and make sure that we're matching them to the best unit. Because some units don't come with the supports, and then that would just set them up to fail. So we don't want to put somebody into a unit just because. And then other units are designed for families, and we want to make sure we're getting the families into those units. So we're looking very specifically at matching and prioritizing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's good. That's actually, I'm happy to hear that response, because you're basically saying that one size really doesn't fit all, and that there are a lot of factors in the different demographics and what's available from a housing perspective.
Yep.
What's
it's true.
available from support.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
thank you for that.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you. And I think you described it one time, Aaron, as peeling an onion. Is the best way of describing it, because there's always so many layers, of course, as you go down further and further. And I know the deputy and I have been advocating at the county level, as other county councillors now too. The last 4 years for sure, we've seen a change, and we're focusing more on doing what we can as county councillors. So we really do appreciate all you've done, and your team. And Christine, that goes to you also. I know you and I have had conversations in the past at Zoom meetings and whatnot, and you're just real strong advocates for us. So we really appreciate all of the work you've done behind the scenes. It really makes a difference. And yeah, we'll continue to support what we can to see what we can do to end homelessness in Huron County.
Thanks for your support.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you very much, Aaron. And if there's no further questions, thank you. Ms. Masuda Carlson, you read the recommendation, please.
That South Huron Council receives a delegation as presented from the Housing Services Department, Huron County, by Aaron Schooley.
And a mover, please, Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 5. Thank you. No public meeting. Go to the minutes, please. 0.1.
That South Huron Council adopts the minutes of the regular council meeting of September 18th, 2023, as printed and circulated.
A mover, please, Councillor Oak, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? It carries with 5. Thank you. 8, please.
That the agenda's minutes and meeting highlights of the following committees and or boards be received as presented to council. Huron County Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Oversight Committee, draft minutes of May 24th, 2023, and priority area map. Asabo Bayfield Conservation Authority, draft minutes of July 20th, 2023, and agenda package of September 21st, 2023. Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, draft minutes of August 29th, 2023, and agenda package of September 26th, 2023. Heritage Advisory Committee, draft minutes of September 13th, 2023. Blue Water Recycling Association, meeting highlights of September 21st, 2023.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just a question on the Huron County Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Oversight. Is there, and this is a great mapping that's been put together. Is there any need, since you're both on the committee, Deputy, and to have another committee of the whole to discuss this any further? Would there be any beneficial benefits to us?
Ms. Masuda Carlson, do you want to take that?
Right now, we're actually this week, we're having a working group meeting just to review this whole Community Safety and Wellbeing Oversight Committee. As well, Stacy, our Community Relations Manager, will be reporting to the Police Services Board, and as well, there'll be a final report to council later on as well with some of these initiatives.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor Finch. Just in looking it over and reading over the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, a lot of these items are very timely, very necessary and actionable. I'm wondering if there's going to be any talk about preventative measures. I know in the community safety and well-being plan, under all the different pillars, there's a number of preventative actions, and some of them are maybe a little bit nebulous, but I'm wondering if that's coming down the pipe, or is this just going to be the focus is the here and now?
Yeah, Ms. Basu Carlson.
We seem to be playing tag, but through the chair. Yes, there is. This is just preliminary. Actually, this was one of the first oversight meetings. So is more of an introductory and learning about what each of the other organizations are doing in the community. It's an ongoing list, ongoing conversation. And it's we'll be reporting, to council on that. Okay.
Deputy, go ahead.
And just a follow-up, this is, when you read the title, it's Huron County Community Safety and Wellbeing. So this has to do with a lot of the county projects and what they bring back to us. We still have our own South Huron Community Safety and Wellbeing. So they're worked together. So I think that's where we're at right now. We're trying to get everything that, get it bigger and hopefully it'll in the end, it'll be a great program. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, no, Councillor Oak, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Deputy Mayor. It's more of a county one because I'm not sure if there was anything that would be in South Huron that should be added to this, because at this last meeting, both you and Rebecca weren't able to attend. I just wondered if there's anything that we should have or should be thinking about that was discussed that isn't in this mapping.
Ms. Basu Carlson.
We do have our own separate list for South Huron. This information is just to let us know as well, and all the member municipalities, what is happening and what opportunities we can look forward to as well, not only in Huron County, but Perth as well. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Deputy, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to keep coming back, but all these that are mentioned were at the meeting. There's a huge committee. In fact, we were in the OPP station where their room is, and we were too deep. There was too many there. So like, it's really good, but like our CAO said, it's a beginning. This is the first time that we've seen this. So we had a meeting last week and there's some more information coming forward. So hopefully we'll keep moving it forward, but yes, we're still working on it. Thank you.
Ms. Basu Carlson, comment?
And I would also add that Stacy, a community relations manager, she's taking lead on this and attending the meetings as well.
Thank you. And Mr. Neeb, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to keep putting you guys on the spot. Has there been any talk about funding from the province or sending correspondence to the province? Because a lot of these items are very, very big, and it's good that there's a number of organizations that are working together on it, but community safety and well-being plan needs to be funded somehow. And I'm just wondering if there has been any talk about that.
Ms. Basu Carlson. Sorry.
There hasn't been as of yet, but there have been discussions that might happen. A lot of these organizations are already funded differently, and that's where our role is to kind of gather the information and see where we can fit in. And we also have a budget with the Police Services Board for South Huron specific initiatives.
Follow up, Mr. Neeb.
Nope, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Oak, go ahead first.
Just on another topic on the agenda there, the Blue Water Recycling Association, the meeting highlights, and I know they're coming to a future committee of the whole meeting on the transition process and stuff, but it just raised my eyebrow when I was reading the report that current estimates show that Ontario only has 10 years of remaining disposal capacity available. And just that's a scary thought, and just wondering, brings up our future expansion that that staff are working on right at the moment is going to be critical for our municipality here. So
Yep, that's right. And it's always being monitored by Francis, of course, and our Mr. Giverson. So, Ms. Sioux Calls, do you have any comment at all or not?
No, I don't have to add anything other than that staff are continuing to work on that expansion. Yes.
Okay, if there's no other comments, we can move on to call the question. Call the question. All in favor? That carries a 5. Thank you. 8.6, I believe.
That the draft minutes of the September 20th, 2023 Centralia Community Park Advisory Committee be received as presented to council. And that South Huron Council approve the recommendations of the Centralia Community Park Advisory Committee as follows. That a historical sign for the Centralia Hall be purchased to an upset limit of $500 using funds from the Centralia Community Park Amenity Fee, Grand Bend Wind LP Amenity Fee Funds Reserve, and that the final wording of the sign be approved as outlined on the proposed sign attached here too, and that the sign be installed with the existing playground sign.
There's a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Vaughn, second by Deputy Mayor. Discussion. Councillor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Yes, I just have a few questions. I understand Milt couldn't come tonight. And so I'm just thinking in terms of the survey, who does it target? Is there like a target audience? You have to live in a specific place or?
Ms. Sioux Calls, you can comment?
Through the mayor, I know Stacy's on here and she could probably answer your questions for that. Thanks.
Ms. Jeffrey, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Finch. Great. Oh, sorry, just a sec. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you, no problem. Yep.
Awesome. Through you, Mayor Finch. So great question, Councillor Vaughn. Through discussion with the committee members, I mean, their true focus is those who currently use the park. So within the Centralia community, as well as some outside visitors from the park that may visit the park in future. So truly the focus is both within South Huron or people that do travel to utilize the park. I know that the committee members that we have on this committee are very connected to the community and to those who use the park, which is great. So I think that connection will help gather a great response to the survey.
Thank you, Ms. Jeffrey. Comment, follow up, Ms. Vaughn?
Yes, please. So that means that there are no restrictions in terms of who can answer, because I do know that the new Outlook group out of Huron Park, they also use the park. They use the pavilion. They have things there. So just wanted to make sure that they were there were no restrictions is really my question. And I did send you an email earlier today, Stacy, about how we are going to bring this out to the public. Obviously, our website, you answered the hub as well, potentially a Facebook group out of Centralia, potentially. And yeah, so I just wondered if there were any other thinkings, because I know Huron Park also has a Facebook group.
Ms. Jeffrey, comment?
Through you, Mayor Finch. So Councillor Vaughn, yes. So to clarify, there's no restrictions. We do ask for those who are completing the survey to answer where they live, just so then we can obviously verify the responses and to link to whether people live there, use the park, or if they're traveling some distance to use the park. In terms of distribution, so yeah, the survey is ready to go. Staff work to get that drafted through southhuron.ca. So we'll be able to use our website to host that, which is great. We do have lots of communication channels that we can use, like you mentioned, obviously our website, the hub, our Facebook, as well as there are a few Facebook groups that are targeted towards that area. So like you mentioned, Huron Park, there's also the Centralia one, as well as some of the community members who are within the community daily offered to distribute paper copies to potentially residents that, wouldn't necessarily do it on the computer as well. and just throughout their time. So they have up until October 20th for the survey, just based on deadlines to report back to council. So truly it's an all hands on deck, and the committee members have been wonderful, and they're definitely committed to, be able to have anyone that is able to and has an interest to complete the survey.
Thank you, Ms. Jeffrey. Follow-up, Councillor Vaughn?
Just thanks for that, and thanks to the committee. I know Milt's not here tonight, but thanks to the committee for moving this along. This is great. Happy to see it.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, and any other persons, members of council have a comment? Not seeing any. We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question. All in favor? And that carries a 5. Okay, thank you. Moving on, please, 9.
9.4.1, that South Huron Council received the report from Scott Curry, Manager of Communications and Strategic Initiatives, titled RFP Award, Electronic Document Records Management System, and that council accepts the proposal from Image Advantage Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $39,749 to provide the municipality with an electronic document records management system solution.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Oak, second by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries a 5. Thank you. 9.4.2.
That South Huron Council receives a report of Alex Wolf, Acting Clerk, Reward 2 Councillor vacancy, and that South Huron Council directs staff to proceed with option blank to fill the vacant Ward 2 Councillor seat.
Very good. Project to proceed, Ms. Wolf. Would you mind doing that? Thank you.
Okay, just to provide council with an overview of the process. So as was passed at the last council meeting, council did declare the seat vacant as set out in the Municipal Act. So they have 60 days to either fill the seat by having a consenting eligible elector or declare a by-election. So the report does outline different aspects of eligibility and processes. Whether council wants to proceed with a by-election, a bylaw would be brought back to the next council meeting for council consideration, or they're welcome to also choose by appointment. So there's a departmental procedure, clerk's procedures attached to the report that outline the different options for council consideration. Schedule 1 to the report does outline the options for filling a vacancy by either appointment of a previous election candidate or by a call for nominees. So sections 4 through 6 of Schedule 1 to that attachment do outline the different application processes. And then section 8 onwards deals with the special meeting that would take place on November 8th, along with voting procedures. So pursuant to the Municipal Act, council does have to fill this vacancy by November 17th. So we've provided an outline should council go through the appointment process that the November 8th special council meeting. Following the process, council would pass a resolution to appoint a successful candidate. Should council go the by-election route, the Municipal Elections Act does dictate the election process. So there'd be a nomination date and an election day.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Masood. Do you have any follow-up comment or before I go to council members? Any members of council have any questions at this time? Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please.
Thank you through the chair. Just to the clerk, what would be the process at the special council meeting?
Through the chair. So special council meeting, whether council chooses to go the route of either appointing a previous election candidate or call for nominees, anybody who was either considered, council has requested us reach out for election candidate or call for nominees, they would have to submit their application by October the 27th. And then at the special council meeting, each of the candidates will be in attendance. They'll be provided 5 minutes to speak to council. Each council member is provided 2 questions per candidate. And following all the candidates' chance to speak, council would then vote on who they would vote on the candidates to determine who is the successful applicant.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vaughn, I see you reaching for your mic.
Yes. So I think I just heard you say the math was 5 minutes in terms of being able to respond, but every council member has the opportunity to ask for 2 questions, and they have opportunity to spend 2 minutes answering each of those questions. That math does not add up to 5 minutes.
Yes,
Madam
so
Clerk?
through the chair, so the 5 minutes, just to clarify, the 5 minutes is for the individual or candidate to provide an overview of why they feel that they should be considered for the position. Then each council member, has the option to offer 2 questions, and then they have the 2 minutes on top of those 5 minutes per question. If that clarifies.
Okay, that clarifies. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. In our geography, in Western Ontario or Southwestern Ontario, there's been a few vacancies in the last year or 2. What is the general process, or what are you seeing the majority end up doing? Do they go with a appoint or call for nominees, or are they going with the by-election route, considering we're still in the first year of our mandate? So just wondering, yes, there's a fair number of dollars, but we're also just in first year as well. So
Ms. Wolf?
So through the chair, staff did reach out to numerous municipalities and cities within Ontario to examine different processes that they use for filling the vacancy. A majority of the responses that we received back, they've been doing the call for chair, call for nomination. And the process has been very similar to the one that is attached to the report here. There was the odd one that we had, Colbert, sorry. They did, through reviewing previous candidates, they advised that their recent vacancy was very close to when the election just took place. So they reviewed previous candidates. And then Windsor, they said they did by-elections based on it was very early in the term. So they went the by-election route, as has Ottawa. However, those larger ones have also, depending on the timing of the term, have gone a different route in using call for nominations. So it's kind of dependent on usually the larger municipalities, if it's earlier, or larger cities earlier in the term, they seem to go the by-election route.
Go ahead, Councillor Oak.
yeah, thank you. Just as a follow-up, I know South Bruce is going through the process right now for mayor, and I believe it's by-election that they're recently Elmer just did a by-election as well for a council position. So those are 2 that I'm aware that were by-election route. So
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Vaughn, go ahead.
Yes, we have in the past in South Huron operated pretty much during elections on a ward system. We have 3 wards. And so this particular vacancy happens to be in Ward 2. Are there any restrictions? Should we go the nomination route to nominees coming forward from anywhere in South Huron, irrespective of ward?
Ms. Wolf?
Through the chair, so section 29 sub 4 of the Municipal Elections Act states that if a municipality is divided into wards, a person is eligible to be nominated for any office in an election in any ward within the municipality. So there would be no restrictions to anybody who could, whether they submit an application or if they were a previous candidate who ran for a different position on the last election.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I look to council where they like to proceed. Option 1 or option 2? Councillor Need, go ahead, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with option 2, appointment by call for nominees. And I don't know if I need a seconder to make a comment, but Do you want-
Ms. Wolf, we don't have a mover and a second on this yet, so just look to staff. Okay, please go ahead.
So moved by Counselor Neeb, that South Huron Council receives the report of Alex Wolf, acting clerk, reward 2 councillor vacancy, and that South Huron Council directs staff to proceed with option 2, appointment for nominees to fill the vacant Ward 2 councillor seat.
So moved by Counselor Neeb.
Yes,
Is there a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor, any discussion? Go ahead, Counselor Neeb.
I guess just to explain my justification, I think with the cost and the added staff time, I think there's a number of people who ran in the last election that might be interested in coming forward, as well as the wider public. So I think opening it up to by a call for nominees allows both members of the public and the wider community to put their name forward, but also allow those people who ran in the last election also to put their name forward. I think just with the by-election, it's costly to move forward for our staff during our budget period as well. And I think this is a democratic way of doing it as well, where when we have our special council meeting, we're going to hear in open session why some of these individuals might feel they can fill the seat. So that's my rationale.
Thank you. Go ahead, Counselor Oak.
Yeah, thank you. Just a question in the this process, if we go with option 2, does it have to be unanimous, an agreement on the person if you were to appoint somebody, or is it majority? Is one of the questions I have on this. And if we can't agree on somebody, then as long as it's done before November 17th, we could go to a by-election at that time. Is that the understanding I
Ms.
have?
Wolf.
So through the chair, section 11 of the procedure attached in Schedule 1 does outline the process for voting. So to skip ahead here, candidate names will be displayed on the monitor in alphabetical order in the council chambers by the clerk. Each member of council will be provided a ballot by the clerk with their name on it, listing all candidates in alphabetical order. Each member of council will cast their ballot and sign their name, and they can only cast for one candidate. The greatest number of votes cast must receive more than 1/2 of votes in order for there to be a successful candidate. In the event that is not the case, then the candidates who receive the fewest number of votes will be excluded from a further round of voting. So the idea is that council will continue to vote until there is either a successful candidate that's received more than 1/2 of the votes of all the voting members. In the event there is a tie, so if there's a tie with more than 2 candidates, as there is a possibility with 6 members of council, there will be a further vote. And at that time, if there's another tie, then the clerk will draw names by lot. So if there were three candidates for consideration and there were 2 ties, the clerk would draw names by lot. So there'd be the 3 candidates' names in a container. The clerk would draw 2 names. Those 2 individuals move on to the next round of voting. The 3rd individual who is not drawn is removed. And then you would vote again for between the 2 final candidates. In the event you run into a tie on that twice again, then the clerk does another draw by lot. So both names go in the container and whoever gets picked is the successful candidate. So there wouldn't be, if you're going this route, there would not be then the option to go to a by-election at a later date.
Is either option 1 or option 2. Thank you. Any other questions, comments this time? Not seeing any. So we have a mover and a second for option number 2. Ms. Bissell Collins, do you have a comment?
No, I
No.
was just checking.
If there's no further discussion, we have a motion on the table. Call the question. All in favor, option 2. And that carries with 5. Thank you very much. Okay, moving along. Notice the motions. Are there any at this time?
There are none.
Thank you. Items for discussion arising from previous meetings. Are there any at this time? Not seeing any new business. 12.1, Ms. Masula Carlson.
So the discussion topics will include OPP contract, BRA transition update, and Grand Bend trunkline sewer, and the recommendation that South Huron Council set a committee of the whole for October 30th, 2023 at 4 p.m.
Mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, second by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 5. Thank you. Mayor and Councillor comments and announcements. Are there any comments or announcements from members of council? Councillor Neeb, were you at the Truth and Reconciliation? Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Mayor Finch. On Saturday, I had the opportunity to go to the flag raising for the Every Child, No Child Left Behind, sorry, at the Parkette. It was the first community flag raising, so there was a smudging ceremony, and Monique Prigent from the Avon-Maitland District School Board came and led everyone through the ceremony. It was a really nice day to do it, and I'm looking forward to the event again next year.
Thank you. And I was also in attendance to that. It was a pleasure to see the number of people that were there. And you know, moving South Huron forward, it's great to recognize Truth and Reconciliation on that Parkette property. No other comments from members of council at this time? Okay, moving right along to communications. Ms. Masula Carlson, go ahead, please.
12.1 or 14.1. 14.2. Okay, 14.3. 14.4. 14.5.1. 14.5.2. 14.5.3.
Thank you. So 14.1. Just want to commend our staff publicly. I think we are very fortunate to have just incredible staff. I've said that many times. The work they do behind the scenes is just absolutely phenomenal. And we're very fortunate. Any comments from members of council? Mr. Neeb, go ahead, please.
Nope, just echoing your comments too. It's great to see that we're in the top 15 in the province again. I think I think it was last year as well that they received the award. So congratulations to Julia and her team, and we're very lucky to have you as staff in the municipality of South Huron.
Absolutely. Nothing further from members of council. Okay, go to 14.2. Ms. Masula Carlson, can you comment on that, please?
This is correspondence received from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. And the county, Huron County planners actually did a review for us, and those planner comments are attached there. And they provided 6, here's a list of 6 recommendations that were attached to this communication for council review. That they thought could fit for the submission, which is due October 16th, before the next council meeting. So I just thought that I'd bring that forward. Staff did review the 6 that were attached from planning staff. And number 50, the 6th one that's on the list, it's actually it's saying funding to support e-permitting implementation would be beneficial. However, we felt that one we could safely remove and keep the other 5 as we already are on the cloud permit system, and that is already an ongoing program, whereas the other ones maybe would hold more value. So I was bringing this forward and hoping could get a resolution from council after any questions that we could proceed with the 5 as outlined, the 3B, 26, 42, 45, and 48 for the submission for the October 16th deadline.
Comments from council. Councillor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Yes, I did note that we had 6 and we were asked to provide 5. So I hear what you're saying in terms of staff have said 50 is maybe the one that isn't needed. But as a counselor, I'd like to say that I don't think we need item number 26. This is actually an area where we're asking the public to be able to voice their concerns for applications that are passed by council. There aren't an awful lot of appeal opportunities. The province already did amend their rules, if you will, to be able to appeal. They increased the applicant fee from $400 to $1,000 in the hope that this would take away frivolous, vexatious types of of appeals. And I, as a counselor, I just can't support coming up with a way to keep the public quiet in favor of the time that staff might have to spend in the whole appeal process. So I don't support number 26. I do have another comment though, which is basically I know that they've only asked for give us the 5 that you would like to see move forward. They also asked for any kind of advices that we might have about things that have worked well. And I'm thinking, isn't this also a good opportunity for us to, in perhaps a cover letter, talk about the things that we have done? Because we have been looking very hard at our zoning bylaw and our as of right, our secondary suites, granny suites, in-house suites, that kind of thing. And also, I know we've done certain delegations with the staff for certain site plan approvals that don't need to necessarily come to council to speed things up. So I'm just wondering if we shouldn't use this as an opportunity as well with the Minister of Housing to toot our own horn as to the things that we've proceeded along with.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, Councillor Need, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Finch. And I guess if the next time you see Craig, thank him and the county planners for providing those recommendations from the Provincial Housing Task Force. It's great to see that some of the items on there specifically about removing barriers to affordable construction. One of the things that as I was reading through it that it reminded me of when we were at AMO during the minister's question period. And one of the questions to the Minister of Housing was about, municipalities have been doing a lot in order to try to cut red tape to speed up the processes with development. But there haven't been any requirements for these developers to have shovels in the ground by a certain period and having those, even a timeline that's laid out. And I was just wondering if maybe we could get some information back from Craig about that and whether or not we need to send correspondence to the ministry and to Lisa to prompt that, because the housing minister at the time said he's open to listening to ways of speeding up that process and get more housing. So
Okay, thank you, Councillor Oak.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Neeb on that front. We do have some leverage when it comes to plan a subdivision that we say it's got to be started within a certain time frame and give them a couple years, and if it doesn't happen, maybe there's an extension, or then it runs out and then they basically have to start all over again with those kind of scenarios. So there is some tools in our tool chest today that we can provide, but it's limited, and more of a hammer would be good every once in a while to keep the process going with local influence. So
Okay, thank you.
I agree.
Thank you. And Ms. Masula Carlson, comment?
And I would also add that if we are going to send a cover letter, we could talk about some of the grant funding as well. Some of it limits use on growth related projects for the infrastructure. I mean, that would be a different, if we're going to proceed that way. It wasn't on the list that we could pick from, but however, there are considerations there as well.
Thank you. Any other comments at this time? Ms. Masula Carlson, how would you like to proceed? Do you need a resolution of some kind then? on this?
Yes, I would like a resolution. I guess the question would be if Councillor Vaughn is going to move it without the 26 on this list. Maybe the.
I would like to so move.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Neeb, and I'll ask Ms. Wolf to prepare the resolution before we go any further.
So just clarification then,
Yep.
it's we're only submitting 4 items because staff has recommended taking item 50 off as well.
Ms. Masuda Carlson, comment?
I will say that if we're taking 26 off and there is funding to support e-permitting, we could probably take it. So let's maybe keep that on if that's okay with Councillor Vaughn.
That'd be fine.
Seconder. Thank you.
That South Huron Council provide a letter to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing outlining the top 5 housing affordability task force recommendations and comments as outlined in Planner Metzger's email of September 28th, 2023, and recommend and support recommendations being 3B, 42, 45, 48, and 50, and that the cover letter include municipal accomplishments to date.
Councillor Vaughn, you satisfied with that?
The cover letter was also to include topic grants, some reference to grants.
That South Huron Council provide a letter to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing outlining the top 5 housing affordability task force recommendations and comments as outlined in Planner Metzger's email of September 28th, 2023, and recommend 3B, 42, 45, 48, and 50, and that the cover letter include municipal accomplishments to date and comments relating to grants.
Councillor Vaughn, you're satisfied with that as the mover?
I am, thank you.
The seconder, thank you. Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That carries with 4. Thank you. Ms. Masuda Carlson. Recommendation, please.
That South Huron Council received communication items not otherwise dealt with.
And is there a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Neebs, or sorry, Councillor Oak, seconded by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That carries with 5. Thank you. 15, there's no closed session, therefore no 16 for reporting on from closed session. Go to 17.1, please, Ms. Masuda Carlson.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 58, 2023, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a site plan agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of South Huron and Hillsite Development, Inc. in the Municipality of South Huron in the County of Huron.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Oak, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That carries a 5. 17.2, please.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 59, 2023, being a bylaw to authorize the transfer easement between the Corporation of the Municipality of South Huron and Bell Canada.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Vaughn, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That carries a 5. Thank you. 18.1, please.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 60, 2023, being a bylaw to confirm matters addressed at the October 2nd, 2023 council meeting.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Oak, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That carries a 5. Thank you. And 19, please.
The South Huron Council hereby adjourns at 7:04 PM to meet again on October 16th, 2023 at 6 o'clock PM or at the call of the chair.
Moved by Counselor, or Deputy Mayor Dietrich, seconded by Counselor Neeb. And any discussion, call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 5. Thank you very much, and thank you to our